look, if we can't do what we want now when we're funding it with no kind of people telling us what to do, when can we make our own film? You know what I mean?
Today on Director's Notes, it's a great pleasure to be joined by John Minton and Geoff Barrow to talk about the first Invada Films film, Game. So welcome to Director's Notes, both of you.
Thank you.
Hiya, how you
Nice to be
doing?
here.
So, look, we are doing this interview very early, which is fantastic for us, which means that, the majority of people watching this aren't going to know anything about the film at all. So that I don't mess it up and spoil anything, could could I get you, one of you guys, to tell us a little bit about the film, to introduce it to our audience?
Yeah.
Shall I do it?
Yeah, go for it, Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a thriller, I would say, set in the UK in 1993, kind of based around the time when there were lots of raves happening, or it was at the tail end of kind of rave culture in the UK. And yeah, it's a kind of two-hander. There's two people in it, and it's I suppose it's a survival stroke thriller stroke kind of comedy in places. Yeah, so and it's like I said, it's Invada's film's first film. I run a company called Invada Records, and we mainly release soundtracks and bands on vinyl. So we do things like Stranger Things and lots of really kind of like just interesting electronic and scores and work with lots of different artists. We sign people as well. And yeah, this is our first feature that's will be kind of in cinemas around November, December.
Cool. Yeah, because I think the first that I heard about this project was, I've been a long time fan of Beak and the beige buffet that you guys put on when you when you're touring. Those delightful sausage rolls. Um, and it was when you announced that you were leaving Beak. So was this kind of the catalyst that you wanted to dive more into the film world as to kind of why, you were leaving Beak and kind of stepping back from that side of the music?
Yeah, it was kind of two things really. One, I started to get ill a bit when I was touring. I was kind of suffering from exhaustion really a bit. I think my days of live touring have finished. And that kind of also went with the idea of actually working out not just on scores, but developing films, producing films and writing them. So yeah, they kind of went hand in hand. One led on to the other almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And John, your I suppose relationship with Geoff, that goes back, what was it, like 22 years or something? Like
Yeah.
for like was it a Gonga music video?
Yeah, it's from the start of Invada Records in the UK, really. Gonga, were Gonga the first, Jeff? I kind of assume they are.
Yeah, it was Fuzz Against Junk were kind of
Yeah,
like
it was, yeah.
that, like a live recording
Yeah,
of
that's right.
theirs
Yeah, but
in a
yeah,
in a.
Gonga was
But
the first kind
Gonga
of,
was the first kind of one we said these guys need a video.
yeah, they're going to go far, these guys. And yeah, and we made a video, and that's kind of how we met, basically. It was through the process of making that video. And I think we kind of got on from the off and felt like I remember meeting you soon after that in a pub and chatting, and you were like, "Yeah, we kind of work in a similar way, me and you." And I
Yeah.
remember thinking, "All right, cool, that's like and I think that remains true, to
Mm.
2 years later.
Yeah,
Uh,
because you've done like live visuals for Portishead and tons of other bands and worked with obviously lots of Invader Records bands throughout the
yeah,
years, really. And one of the things as well that I was quite pleased to notice is that you I know that you're kind of an editor by trade, but and you edited Esther May Campbell's September, which I
Mhm.
interviewed her for way back in
All right,
2008.
wow, okay,
Yeah, which was
cool.
BAFTA
I
nominated.
know that was my first narrative cut. Esther literally persuaded me to do it. and it was coincided with the first Portishead tour after the third album. So it was a strange old time. I remember cutting it on a crap version of Avid in my old studio which was kind of polluted by the spray shop next door, and it kept crashing. And I was delivered the edit and then went on tour with Portishead, and so that seeing the process of September then go through its post process, I wasn't part of that at all, but obviously I saw the screening. It was a real indicator of how you can develop every step of the way, and it remains true today. But I was kind of only a few years into freelancing really, and freelancing for me became working in the music industry as well as seeking out kind of like short doc edits for different people in Bristol. I just started making lots of stuff basically. I was making constantly just making stuff basically. So September was one part of that, and for it to win a BAFTA was incredible. Like it was a great achievement.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's kind of taught me a lot. Esther's a really interesting filmmaker. That film, she basically developed her own language, so wrote the film through subtitles. It was kind of like it was quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, this is a first for Invada Records, but it's also it's a first for both of you. This is John, your first feature,
Yeah.
feature debut, and Geoff, your first writing, producing debut. So why this project? Why this story? How did that come to be?
Geoff, yeah, you developed it, didn't you, with Marc?
Yeah, it was weird. So basically, Mark and I, Mark's the main character in the film. He's the guy who's trying to survive his situation. But also, Mark and I went to school together in Portishead. And Mark was in an early kind of part of Portishead. He was like a singer, got a rapper in Portishead when we were first developing. We were going through vocalists. So we've worked close together. I mean, the other thing with Mark as well, he's a by trade, he's a designer, graphic designer, and has done like loads and loads of album covers, and so all the work that you see on Game is actually was all done by Mark, who's actually the main actor in the film. So the way that we work, is really close knit. You know what I mean, and real like we're all there kind of for each other. We haven't got the budget to kind of farm out stuff, you know what I mean? But we also trust each other um, a lot as well. We know which, and when you've got that trust between like a group of people, it's really empowering, and I suppose so. That's why it ended up with this story as well. It's like, well, we haven't got much money. We can't have a huge cast. I mean, Mark and I were talking for a long time about doing a theatre production of Ballard's Concrete Island. Basically, that's where this idea came from, a man trapped in a car. I don't know if you don't know Ballard's Concrete Island, it's about a guy that spins off the road and turns his car upside down. But it was based in 1973 off one of the roads in London, very kind of different kind of setup. So Mark and I had talked about it because Mark obviously had really got into acting later, not in his 30s, and done a lot of theatre. So I was just thinking, I don't know, you have these crazy ideas. Let's do a theatre production of Concrete Island. I was going to do it in a motorway roundabout in Bristol. You get those kind of those roundabouts in towns, and they've got a bit of greenery
Right.
in
Yeah.
the middle.
Yeah,
And
it's like
so the idea
subways.
was that
Yeah.
we were going to do it there, and also because they're always kind of based around big estates and kind of like not so wealthy kind of people live there. So the idea was that we could get young kids to come, and it could be their first kind of their first experience of theatre. Do you know what I mean? Is actually in this place where they walk to school every day. You know what I mean? To
Kind of
be
like
honest, I still like to
Yaba,
do it,
kind
but
of that type of thing.
anyway,
Kind of like
Pardon?
the Arbor, that was done like in Bradford and like getting the community involved, that kind of thing. Was that the
I
approach?
don't know. Yeah, I don't know that. I mean, I don't. Yeah, so, but I suppose it was just. I don't know. We always kind of have these ideas. We're always chatting about stuff. Me and John are always chatting about stuff. So we that didn't happen. It kind of developed into this idea. Instead, it's like make a film. Let's make a film. John and I had already, for ages, been on tour and gone. Let's make a film. Let's make a
Yeah.
feature.
Yeah. I think that's the connection. It's like we've got this close-knit group of creative people, and we all meet up and collaborate on projects. And then we were just kind of looking around going, well, we've got the skills. Why? But we're kind of like, we want to step into a new, step out of our comfort zones and be tested and do new things. And everyone likes film. We can spin stories, we can edit, we can deliver things. And why not do our own?
Yeah.
And that was kind of that's how it started, really. I
It's a
remember
it's
just
a kind
phoning
of
up.
like it's a kind of like can do, will do kind of attitude really to it. It's just like we don't know everything there is about films. We've not seen every cool film that's ever existed. We've not, it's just like we would be doing this anyway. We're not expecting the world to love it. We're like it's just that thing of kind of like those rules that are set up by industries, like, oh, you can't do this unless you've got this, and
Yeah.
you can't do this until, and like Invader it has always been the kind of opposite of that. And it's like, if you've got a camera and if you've got a computer, you can record music, you can shoot something. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, you don't need to be technically the most but John is. But what I'm saying is, like, you don't. Do you know what I mean, though, John? You
Yeah, I
kind
know
of
what you
like
mean.
you
Yeah.
can just make films and you can make music and you can do stuff. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And we've got a supportive group of people around us to kind of do that. And luckily enough, Invada Records had done all right for a couple of years. And I said to Reg, my partner, like, how have we got any money? And he was like, yeah, we've done all right. And I'm like, well.
I'd like to spend it all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I've never taken any money from Invader ever as a wage or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So there was money there, and we just thought, right, we've got this amount of money to make a feature.
Yeah.
You know, whether it could have been, I mean, it ended up being 150 grand, but basically it could have been 80 grand. It could have been, but we would have still made it. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I'm curious as to the length of the film and like, am I right in like, is there a short film version of this, or am I incorrect?
No,
There was
no,
never a
No.
yeah.
film version.
We did talk. I talked about this recently and it got a bit confusing, but basically we started with the story idea. Then we had a script about 60 pages long, or maybe like the first iteration was almost like 45, 50. Then it kind of grew, and then there was a point where Geoff was like, no, we need to be feature length. We're making a feature. We're not going to make a long short film, basically.
No.
September was like 30 minutes. We wanted to be, if we're going to do it, let's do it properly. And so, like, we then had to make our script longer and push it towards 70 pages, 74 or something in the end, weren't we, for
Yeah.
shooting? So we just developed it and had to make sure that we put ourselves in that kind of like feature length bracket. So we appealed to festivals and stuff. But I did research, feature film lengths, and it's not like there's no absolute.
It's 73 in it. I mean, the British
Our one.
British thing is
Oh, yeah.
no.
Okay,
It's I mean
yeah.
the British kind of board of films classified as kind of a
Oh,
feature
yeah.
is
73.
74 minutes, I think.
But then, like, Nolan's feature length is 65. I think it can break the rules. It depends on how good it is,
Well,
ultimately.
yeah, how much money spent on it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, basically.
No one's going to say, sorry, Mr. Nolan, you can't come in because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
only this short.
He
You know
did
what I
all
mean?
right. Yeah,
The trouble is that when you like, the trouble is that from our point of view, just starting out, if we had made it 60, people would have just gone,
yeah.
sorry, you can't go into you're too long
Don't
there and too
qualify.
short there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you fall between kind of two stools there of the shorts and the features, if it'd be.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
which is just rubbish, really. You should be able to make a film however long you want, really.
Yeah, and you can, but I do think like if you're going to qualify for stuff and be considered a feature, which we are now, I think people are reviewing it and considering, they're not really taking the budget into consideration or the length. It's just being considered for its own,
Merits, yeah.
yeah, for its own means. But it was interesting having this story and how far can it actually sustain itself, because it is designed to be efficient and shot in very few locations with very few characters and actually not much dialogue and not much actually happening. And that was our challenge, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So there was this balancing act as director and being part of the writing phase was like, we knew that, in theory, if it's a 74 script, you're making a 74-minute film, and we knew we wanted to make it longer. And so my challenge was to know that I can have extended sequences, and that was part of what we wanted to create was this sense of tension and anxiety, especially in the first half of the film. So yeah, I knew I could push it further, and we had a real long. It was like a 2-hour edit, wasn't it, in the assembly? Too
I mean,
long.
you were literally in with Mark,
Too long.
in real time.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing as well is that, so not without giving too much away, but it's a guy who's stuck in a car,
Mhm.
and the thing is, it's like, if you like, we spoke to a few people about it, watched early versions of it, and they're going, oh, the beginning's far too long or whatever. And for us, it's like, well, we want people to feel like he's in it,
Mm,
and also if we make it short and we go along with the kind of what I suppose I could consider the standardized kind of film thing of like, then basically it's supposed to be painful. He's in a car upside down, and if you make it short, it just what you end up with you end up basically making like an episode of Casualty.
mm,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah.
And so we were really like, people do go, it's really, not much happens at the beginning, and it's like, yeah, and that's what's supposed to happen. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah.
we're stuck with him for like it's about like what 36 minutes. I was looking today when I was rewatching it.
Yeah.
We're kind of and there are kind of cutaways here and there to things that had
Yeah.
happened prior, but we're pretty much just with him alone, aren't we, for that
Yeah.
first half an hour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And anybody, if you went to film school, everyone would go, you must be insane.
Yeah.
There's
That's not
no
going to work. Yeah.
it's not going to work. And when I was working on Howard's Way, but we've got a 3 minute turn, and that you don't break that. If
I
you
know.
if you
Yeah.
expect people to watch this, then you must be, what I mean. And
Yeah.
we're
You
like,
got to tell them up front what's going to happen.
yeah,
You've got to consider that they're double screening.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and and it's like, look, if we can't do what we want now when we're funding it with no kind of people telling us what to do, when can we make our own film? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To be
Well,
honest, it ticks the box for those double screeners, doesn't it? Because you can kind of like you can probably do 2 screens on this for the first 36 minutes. You'll be
yeah,
fine.
exactly. Oh, someone's arrived. Yeah.
Especially if you're a bit if you're a bit affected by the kind of like the torture of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, that kind of that being placed with him, that kind of really put me in that claustrophobic kind of sense, and also as well, it had me searching around the car to go, how would
Mm,
I get out of it? Kind of,
Yeah.
like kind of what would I
yeah.
try? And like, oh, try this. Oh, then he tries that, and you're like, okay, maybe try that, and so it kind of gets your mind really,
Yeah.
you kind of feel trapped in there with him.
Yeah.
I find that like I did a podcast the other day with Stuart Wright, and he said exactly the same thing, and I was quite surprised. And like, but for me, that tells we've done our job in a sense. Like, if you're
Yeah.
with him, you want him to escape, and you're helping him for yourself. That was the aim, And I think that part of the film took all of our time, didn't it? It took the majority
Yeah.
of our time in every step of the way, finding the car, the dog, training, all of that in pre-production. The
Yeah.
shoot itself was all about those scenes in the car and night. And actually, it took 3/4 of the time for that first third of the film, really.
Yeah.
The rest of it just flowed after that. And I think the effort paid off because if we can tell that story effectively, then you wouldn't get to the then the release and the reward later on
Mm.
where it starts flowing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, seeding the car with the things that he could use that would be practical to him, and
Mm.
kind of how much, how much back and forth you went with that. Well, this could be in the car and that's not going to be in the car kind of thing.
Yeah, we did a lot of that, mainly in the pub, so it was all right. Um, but yeah, we always got to get together, and it's like Mark would send a note, or if we were on WhatsApp, going, "I'm worried about the pen,"
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, because if he could use
What was it? Sh
but the
Yeah, glass, shards of glass.
glass
What would
shards of
smack? And then we were like, no, window screens don't smash like that. They, they shut it. We would just go around and
yeah, there was a lot of that, and
yeah,
but you're absolutely right. We went through a lot of possible things, like has he got a screwdriver in,
mm,
like in
in his glove
and
compartment.
in
Yeah.
the glove compartment. We never opened the glove compartment in the end, did we?
What about pies? No, we had it open, but we didn't really shoot it because you couldn't really. Yeah, that was another whole thing, the upside down thing, and just span our heads out a lot, didn't it? Like just thinking upside down,
Yeah,
really, we had trouble
You
with.
had a
So
model car, didn't you, that you were
yeah,
using to kind of orientate
yeah,
yourself as well as
I've
lots of
got it on
skills?
the shelf over there. Yeah, it's still there. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna get it. Jesus.
yeah. I mean, John would literally, yeah. I think like his John's brain melted a bit. Um, like
You know,
early on, John's brain melted, but then when we actually got, I mean, we didn't know Mark would actually work in the car upside down until we were on set with Mark upside down in the car.
Yeah, did
yeah.
you
Like
plan
they
on
were,
doing it in a studio at all, or kind of were you always going to do it, for real?
Yeah,
it had to be for real.
we had talked about it, like, but we didn't. I think I think we could only do it in real places, really. Like, but it was more like once we'd committed to doing it outside and we knew we wanted it to be real, we would then go, are we missing something here? Shouldn't we be doing it? Like the upside down world. So we every step of the way we considered it. Everything had thought process.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? It wasn't just but like with the car, we didn't really have the budget or time to do a test. Like, I looked into it. One of our mates at football is a fireman, and he was like, "Oh, we have upside down cars all the time, and I'll just give you a bell to go down Portishead and mess around with one, like when there's one on the that they train with." But that never happened because we were always, just trying to get to the shoot, basically. So, I think we it was calculated risks, wasn't it, all the time? Like, so
yeah,
never really knew until Mark got in the car, but we'd figured it out. We were confident, but we didn't fully know how he would be. And actually, what we discovered when Mark was upside down in the car was quite small. It's a Golf, and his neck is kind of like crushed, and his way of moving and getting in the car was quite restricted, which kind of helped in a sense, but it was a new discovery the day before we were shooting. So we just had to roll with it.
Because did you use,
yeah,
was it like a trapeze kind of rig to, kind of hold him in place? And yeah. And then
Yeah,
kind of also, what are the limitations? Because I know that you had researched, how long people could survive dangling upside down in the car, but
yeah.
obviously you've got your real actor upside down in the car. So what are the
Well,
limitations, that you could have him in that position before killing him, I suppose.
yeah. Well, luckily we had Glenn, didn't we? Glenn, our stunt coordinator, very experienced. And soon as we had someone like him on board, I'd already done some research into how is this possible. He then confirmed that's how you do it. You drill two holes in, you literally have a trapeze bar across his pelvis. That keeps him in the car. You tie it off. So he knew about the ins and the outs and what's possible. Safety was paramount. But Mark
yeah.
was always committed from the off that this should be a struggle. Like he was fully committed to it. And
He,
what Glenn
he's a
brought on
bit,
board was training, basically, preparation and getting
yeah.
used to it. Um, so he had an inversion table and whatnot.
He did, and but I'm just sorry about him, but but Mark is a committed person. You know what I mean? When he says he's going to do, like, there's no half measures. Like he's he's done a lot of theatre, and kind of like he's a fit kind of guy. You know what I mean? He takes care of himself. And so whether he's got to do kind of like a sword fight or whatever he does, he's done martial arts for years, and so it wasn't ever that thing. Like, I think you needed to be that strong and know your body that well
Yeah,
to we really lucked out that our best mate was this guy, you know what I mean,
yeah.
and was really into it and
But
committed to it.
even then, Jeff, he pushed himself too far, didn't he, on that first
He
night?
did. Yeah.
And so we learned from him that we needed to. He would go further than he could push himself further than was necessary, and then so Glenn was on board to coach him through that.
Mm.
And basically, like we then restricted the amount of time he was in the
Yeah,
car.
we pulled it
25 minutes.
back. I think it was quarter of an hour, wasn't it, in the end?
I think 25, and I was getting 15 kind of shooting out of it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
because he pushed himself to an hour and it was just too much. That
yeah,
wouldn't be sustainable because we had the rest of the shoot in front of us. We had to think about that. We couldn't have him breaking down. And because it's all about recovery as well, like recovery time.
yeah,
And you can't just get out. You have to have a certain amount of time outside the car to reset and get ready for your next session. So that
mm,
was kind of challenging. So the simple idea actually involved a lot of complications, which a lot of obstacles along the way, which we kind of like problem solving and we just went
mm,
for it
Yeah.
ultimately.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how did that
yeah.
practically affect, the way that you were shooting it? So, in the rest periods, were you able to shoot other elements or did you just have to pause? Kind of, yeah, how did that affect, kind of as you went through? Because what was it? Was it 2 weeks you shot for?
in in the woods, we shot for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we had a single location for the first, 2 blocks of 5 days, 10 days,
Mm.
and then we had
Yeah,
weekends off. And then we moved into kind of multiple locations in the third week. Into the fourth week, it was a bit more external stuff and green screen and kind of like picking up shots in the later part of the film. So initially we was in Nature Spectacular in Bristol, near Chew Valley
yeah.
Lakes. Great. We stayed on
We
site.
really we really lucked out before John goes on about his shit,
Oh yeah,
which we've got to talk about, obviously. We must say that there was a certain amount of luck involved, like in any film, really. I mean, you should be planning, and you should be past luck, because everything should be organised. But we found this place called Nature Spectacular in Bristol, and it's near Chew Valley Lake, and it's a campsite. So it's got some, yurts that people stay in. It's got American vans, and then it's got this huge yurt which has got it's for weddings. So it's got kitchen, it's got lots of space, and it's got like a dance floor and a bar, and but it's basically worked out to be this amazing place that we could move into, and it had a tiny little bit of wood attached to it. It's mainly all fields. So the wood that we were shooting in was absolutely tiny. So hopefully it looks we're more remote
yeah,
in the film than we actually are.
Right.
But it's like a natural amphitheater. It's like a really great place to shoot. It kind of worked for that, and we just because it's a campsite and it was off season. We just managed. They were really nice. They're a really lovely guy, Luke, who runs it, and just said, "Yeah, give me this amount of money and you can have it." I was like, "Wow, because that covers everything. It covers
yeah.
food, that we would make food. Like the camera crew would stay there, the actors would stay. I mean, it was just we really lucked out with this place.
Yeah. Well, also the weather, we had a bit of a heat wave that first couple of weeks of September, like
Yeah,
the first week, and we were doing nights. So we were all working in the dryer in our t-shirts and shorts through the night. And then it would be too hot during the day. And then the second week, when we started going into days, the heat wave had moved on, and suddenly we had a bit more overcast conditions, so that it was comfortable working. And we just like ever since I've been back to that site a few times, and it's been wet, and there's been a stream running through it. It's just, and we kind of knew that
Mm.
just from the lay of the land, but because it had been particularly dry through lockdown, we had a few really dry summers, didn't we? And like
Yeah.
it was after the shoot that our wet weather that we've had since then has kind of continued. So we were lucky in that sense. But like going back to what you said about the Mark getting out the car, we just picked up what we could. Um, and there wasn't a load of stuff we could do, but there was some stuff of like point of view shots looking down away from the car. And it wasn't until so there was a limited amount we could do whilst Mark was out the car, but we just picked up details of the car, lights, bits and bobs, just stuff that was on my shot list. We never, it didn't feel like we ever stopped, or we would coincide with,
No.
feeding the crew, whatever,
Yeah.
we managed it. We had a really experienced first AD, Kim, who was fantastic. No
Yeah.
bullshit. She lived close to the site as well, which was lucky, and she basically held our hands throughout, and we managed to. We never missed a thing. We made every day, and I
Yeah.
that was one of the successes for me and Ross in particular. It was like we were confident we could work quickly, and we could compromise, and we would listen, and we would still get what we needed, but wouldn't get too sucked into stuff. Like, we're kind of used to that in our the way we work anyway, Jeff. I would say, like through stuff, music or touring. It's like, okay, just
Yeah.
let's do it. That's a good one. Don't sweat it. Just get it done, without sacrificing quality or creativity.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, because you and Ross James go way back, don't you? You've been working together for
Yeah.
years.
Well, Ross is part of the same extended family around us in Bristol. He was on tour with us with Portishead for the first couple of tours on camera, and he's friends with Gonga, for example. So it's all part of that same network of people. Um, and he's got his own career, lighting cameraman, doing broadcast based from Bristol with his van and his kit. And he was really interested in basically testing himself, just the same as us, moving into narrative and feeling, testing the waters, and mainly like feeling the pace of it because he's so used to working quickly and and just kind of thinking with a narrative, motivation for lighting, all that kind of stepping into the DOP kind of shoes.
Mm.
And for me, I just needed someone that I could absolutely trust and that would have my back, and that we would. It wasn't really like, when you research relationships between directors and DOPs, and there's this kind of like romanticism about it, about like, Paul Thomas Anderson testing film stocks and having this kind of like, perhaps not even having a DOP, but like Tarkovsky working with someone alongside and having two cameras and all this kind of high-end kind of way of working. Ours was much more, right, where's the light coming from? How quick can we operate? Will the Sony's Ross's kit deliver? And yes, we need to shoot quickly. We haven't got a large crew, so it was all much more pragmatic and yeah, because all based on kind of like being quick without sacrificing like a vision, like storyboarding and kind of like having some kind of concept to what you're trying to tell the story, so everything was quite low. But then we really benefited from having some grown-ups at the end of our process. Like we've got a fantastic colorist, Jason Moffat, who is a genius in this kind of low budget feature world. He's done so many. He comes from a film restoration background, and his way of working really maximized the data that the cameras put out. So he really wasn't interested what it was shot on. He wasn't interested in what log there was, or he just strips it back and treats it like negative. So he was, that he's really kind of like brought, he looks fantastic, and I think people were surprised when they find out what it was shot on.
Yeah, because what was your main camera? I know your second camera was a Sony FX3, wasn't it, for your dash cam kind of thing?
Yeah, like our B cam
Yeah.
was actually Alex Garland's A7S. I called it an FX3 because it was pretty much it, but it wasn't even as good as that. It was the older model. Um, we was lent it by Alex, Jeff's, long-term collaborator, luckily. So and Ross had an FX9, that was his main camera. And he just used his broadcast lenses, which had some kind of like the Sony Auto is really good with pulling focus and locking onto faces and things like that. So we could really lean into that, like especially once we started moving outside the car. It was so quick. It was so quick to use. And
Yeah, could you tell us a bit about because I've read about it, but just for our, for our viewers about that kind of dash cam camera
Mm.
that you had and the role that you had it play kind of while we're trapped in the car.
Yeah, I remember. Do you remember when we first put the camera in the car, Jeff? And I remember like we always had a B camera like simultaneously cutting, so we could shoot from two angles, and so I could
Yeah,
cut between because Mark's role was like we had that opening scene of the whole film laid out, and it was obviously split up in the script, and pretty much what you see in the film is it's not far away from what the script was. So we knew we was cutting away. So there's these kind of like almost checkpoints that Mark has to wake up. He has to be comatose, almost like he's knocked out. Then he has to wake slowly, everything, and then he has to kind of figure out his surroundings before he reaches for something. Everything had to take time,
mm,
and we had to tell that through certain angles. So we lost our our windscreen was disappeared when the car was put upside down, which was um, actually a kind of godsend in the end. And when I was storyboarding the thing, I always had a point of view of Mark's head on of his face, and so that camera became the dash cam view. I can't think of a better name for it really, but it was more
yeah,
of the screen dash kind of world, and you can't operate from there because so you just so we just and I'm quite used to just mounting cameras and letting them just be auto or search or and we kind of didn't want it. We wanted some kind of artistic kind of viewpoint that
yeah.
wasn't curated, that had a bit of randomness to it, and so it kind of ticked the
Well,
box.
that stuff as a director and working with you that many years
Yeah,
is really important to you.
yeah,
To have those kind of, to let something find its focus, for for like, very much, you weren't a kind of like strict, like, cut person. It was just like, let's keep it rolling, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and um also, I got we've got to talk about Sam. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Um, on the shoot, we really lucked out with working with this guy Sam.
Yeah,
Um,
Ross knew Sam, and he brought him on, didn't he? Basically, it was like there's this guy Sam who can sort us out for everything, and he had so his role ended up being gaffer, grip, and B camera operator, and he probably lent towards right. I can sort the light and I can do the grip, but really I want to do B cam. That was his ultimate aim, and he was a photographer. And Ross was battling with him, going, "No, yeah, I need the light sorting." So there was this kind of collaboration. But in the end, he really ended up shooting a lot of stuff for us, and picking up a lot of
yeah,
B-roll. Um,
and but the thing is as well, he's this incredible character, and I don't mind, I suppose, him us calling him a character, but he's got he's got his own he's got his own film studio in lockups,
mm,
right? So he's got his van, and then he's got like any kind of thing that you need to adjust onto something, stick onto a car, or
mm.
he built his own crane, and
Yeah,
like
his own rig, yeah, yeah. Jib, yeah.
a jib. Yeah, I mean it's insane. Like he's like, I've got one of those in the lockup, and it'll turn up, and like it was just like he's a one man movie studio basically, with lights and like he, he really made things happen for us, didn't he? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. No,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah. Um,
and it's just one of these kind of people that you just go, fucking hell, he's got everything. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like in his lockup. You know what I mean? It's just why don't we try this? Yeah, I've got one of them, and it's
Yeah,
just like,
basically we had two vans and we would unload a few crates of stuff and that was it. That's what made our film.
Fantastic.
yeah,
Kind of like an A-team grip man.
Yeah, yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. It was, yeah. It's just totally brilliant, and and if you had someone that was like, no, this is all I do. I only do this.
Mm,
Then we wouldn't have had the film.
no.
You know what I mean? So everybody like young Joe, who's like, he's got this huge brain when it comes to computers, basically was lifting Mark in and out of the car and then being camera, assistant, and then being the dit, you know what I mean? Like the digital technician
Yeah.
in my camper van, which was parked just off of where the set was. And so, my wife, with our mate Chris did the catering. It's like it was like one of those things, really. It was
Yeah.
like we couldn't pretend we were a real film, you know what I mean? Because there couldn't be any egos
No.
in that either, you know what I mean?
And
It's
also
just
the professionals, so Sam was a professional who had experience making films. Then we had Kim who done TV and film, and then
yeah,
a few kind of like newcomers to our team, I suppose, or our family, friends and family. And they really supported us because they could have easily have gone down the road of, oh, these guys haven't got a clue or whatever. But actually it kind of gelled, didn't it? Like it gelled from the off.
yeah.
And I think
They were
those
really gracious.
it was
They
quite
were really
refreshing
gracious.
for them as well, not to have because you hear stories of film sets and they're stressful and demanding and this and quite a lot of politics. And I'm not denying we didn't come across problems. You always groups of people and touring, you have a bubble and you have to deal with human beings who have issues and there's obstacles along the way. But I think overall we had this kind of sense of togetherness, and I
Yeah,
think our crew and cast showing kind of proved that. It was a really kind of like family atmosphere, wasn't it, when we showed it
yeah, yeah.
a few weeks back? It was good. And I know that's something that you've brought you a lot of joy as well, Geoff, like just sitting back and thinking, look what we're doing, and creating.
Yeah, yeah. I was just really, everybody was really gracious in their time and energy towards it. I mean, like, Bristol, it's a really weird thing. So Bristol has got loads of stuff gets shot here, but basically they don't use Bristol people. They just ship them down from London. And
Right.
it's like, I mean, that needs to be addressed. You know what I mean? I think if they want to use a place like some Victorian Square, then like they've got to use local, extras, and they've got to use like, you know, um, sound people and stuff. It's like, nothing grows in Bristol if you can't feed it, and you can't give these people jobs. You know what I mean? And so these people, like, they were experienced, but they'd kind of been in and out of that as well, and knew what it was like. So our makeup and cost, and wardrobe, they're young people, you know what I mean, and this was most probably their first feature, you know what I mean, and like, but everyone was really like, oh well, yeah, well, you want to do it like this, or they were, so there wasn't like any kind of, oh yes, I've been in the business and this is how it's done kind of bollocks, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It was I think we just we were really lucky.
Mhm. We've mentioned Marc Besson a lot, but no, and rightly so. But opposite
Yeah.
him as a terrifying force is Jason Williamson.
Jason Williamson, yeah.
As soon as he speaks, because we don't quite see him at first, everybody, well, I think most people, anyone with good music taste will recognize that voice instantly. So, yeah, from Sleaford Mods. So yeah, how did you come to cast him opposite Mark?
Well, for me, it was I know. Let me just let the dogs out. Hang on, sorry.
Yeah,
It's
I'll,
just gonna be
I'll fill
barking
in for
at
you,
the
Jeff.
moment.
So I'm kind of interested in hearing the actual origin myself because I've told it recently. And you know, when you're in the act of telling a story, you're like, I don't actually know. But all I do know is that Jason was always the poacher, like from the off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, how did I always knew it, Geoff, that Jason was always the poacher. Jason's on board. But when I told it the other day, I was thinking, I don't actually know how long you've known Jason and the actual origin story of your relationship. So
Well, the thing, I mean, Sleaford's. So to cut a long story short, Sleaford's, when they were developing, well, not developing, when they first started playing gigs, they played like the Exchange in Bristol, and my ex-partner in Invada Records, Fat Paul, was a promoter, and so I'd met him and seen him, and and then obviously social media, you just you just have a laugh or whatever, and then Invader released Tiswas on 12-inch, and I think we went to radio with it, and it was their first kind of radio, proper radio, and then we just became mates, Andrew and that, and then we play Bristol, go see them, um, and and then I suppose the script developed, and then there was this poacher, and it was like, well, it's Jason. It's
Jason's always had an ambition for acting as well. It's kind of what he wanted to do, wasn't it, in his life? Like,
Yeah. So he'd been in he was in a short film about a robot or something like that. First of all, I think it was the voice of it, and then he was randomly. I kind of Cillian. I introduced him to Cillian. I think I could be wrong here, but basically he ended up as like this mad drunken priest in the last episode of Peaky Blinders. Where he's walking, it's supposed to be like New England or something like that, and he's just shouting and whatever. But yeah, and then he was in an ITV drama. He played a carer, I think. And he, it was just no doubt, really. It was like the same that thing with Mark, with no doubt about his commitment. You know what I mean? It was just like Jason, if he felt like he could play this role, and it's like, well, it's yours. I just think it's you. You know
we
what
were
I mean?
writing it with him in mind, weren't we? It was like,
Yeah, but it's not like. So I'm not saying that the poacher is Jason
no,
in
no,
real life,
no.
because it's really not. He's not a psychopath, and there is a very nuanced differences between Sleaford Mods and the poacher. You know what I mean? Like people will kind of go, "Oh, that's Jason," because he's such a strong character. But it is very different, and I think Jason approached it in that way as well.
Yeah,
Like a lot of the poaching and drug stuff as a mate of mine called Leo, who I grew up with in Portishead, and he's been involved in the drugs trade, and he's also been a poacher. So it helped. So we did lots of interviews with him and found stuff out. And Jason himself knew poachers from where he grew up, so he spoke to them and about the way they saw like the countryside and stuff. But yeah, he was on board. He was just like, I'm on board, and that
yeah,
was like great. And we didn't really have to talk about it again. He just said, I'm up for it."
yeah, yeah.
I feel he really nails that antipathy that he has towards, Mark's character, and just the way that it kind of bubbles along. And then there's like the chilling line. I'm also going to get it wrong now, but it's basically about him like just saying, "I can just wait you out. Nobody can come back on me, because
Yeah,
I can just wait you out, basically."
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
so I'll tell you something about what happened though, which was really weird on set, is that we did, we only did one rehearsal with Mark. I think they might rehearse
They
together.
did some Zoom stuff, yeah, but
Yeah.
a proper we
But
only had
in
one proper read through in the room, didn't we? Yeah.
we had one read through in the room, like before. And and it was weird. We got on set, and then obviously we'd done a load of stuff with Mark already, and then Jason turned up. This second week, wasn't it, basically?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, daytime stuff, wasn't it? Yeah, yeah.
and they started acting together, and the dialogue was awful.
Mm.
Like the dialogue just didn't work, right? And that was I take the blame for that. Like there was just stuff that was written that just didn't work, right? So, and as soon as I saw it on camera, I had a gut feeling like this isn't some stuff. You know, a good amount of stuff remained. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But that night, we just had to go off and rewrite it. We just had to. It was just too. It was too theatrical. It was too political. It was just too whatever it was. It just kind of just didn't work. There had to be more of a real basic communication. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It kind of the dialogue was just too grand. It was just too telling. And it was like fuck. We've got to rewrite this, and that whilst they're on set, you know, and we've got no time. So I think me, you, Rob, Mark, just kind of rewrote it.
We shot extra stuff because we had a fear, didn't we, that it was too much. But actually, a lot of the rewriting really happened in the edit. Like we
Yeah,
cut that up and reordered stuff and had to fix therefore issues where suddenly Jason had his balaclava still on, but he's still talking, and I had to kind of edit around it and make it work. But it, you know, from my experience of when stuff doesn't work because you haven't quite nailed it in the writing or whatever,
yeah,
or whether you've shot it an idea that hasn't quite panned out, then those limitations are what makes it because you're fighting against something and you're solving the problem. And we got there in the end. And I think like so it is weird now to think back to that shoot because we had all of that dialogue was shot in one day.
yeah,
Like we had ultimately we didn't have long with Jason or left in the woods.
yeah,
We had to really just nail it. So I think we did a whole day, nailed most of it, and then we had the morning of the next day, and we kind of started that day with some extra stuff written.
yeah.
And
I
but
mean, there's two in the film. There's like I think it's 3 lines of ADR. I think in the whole thing. We
didn't do
didn't want
much.
to.
Well, from Jason in particular, Mark picked up a few like extra bits, didn't he? But
Yeah,
nothing too much at all.
and that wasn't and Jason stuff was basically our fault. You know what I mean? It was just like it's just stuff that we'd written that just didn't work.
Mm.
Um, so when we just wanted because it was that whole scene was made in the edit, a
Hmm.
lot of it. Um, Basically we had to it's just you've got to rewrite lines to make this work ultimately. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I
Yeah.
think that's kind of like we got the order of how we wanted what we wanted them to talk about, and then there was a few gaps, or there was a moment of pause or contemplation or movement where it's like, oh, actually, we could make more sense out of this or add this dimension to the character. It's a tiny micro character developments because
Yeah,
our film doesn't we don't it was never written for a big character development piece. It was more like
no,
his situation, can he survive and get out of it, how is this going to happen? It could be told very quickly, but we wanted to tell it with over time and for the audience to feel it basically.
yeah, but also I must say that we you know, like we're all of an age, um, uh, kind of growing up in and around the countryside and so on as well. And we knew people like that. We grew up with people that went to school with people like that. So ultimately, it wasn't a massive jump. We weren't writing
No.
for a single mother living in the Bronx. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
like, yeah, it was kind
Yeah.
of, we had to, and that goes, it was like with the whole film, we just had to make it about what we knew. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, there's a
Um,
lot of my dad in Jason's poacher character. Just the dismissiveness of like anything modern or new, or like just pissed off with everything.
yeah,
Dare you crash your car in this woods? No, I'm not helping you. Like, fuck
yeah. And
yourself.
same with Miles' character. One of my best mates at school was basically him. He was like, into drugs and raving and working in call centers. You know what I mean? And just until the next rave or whatever. But also like he's not young anymore as well. So You know, he's not a youngster raving. It's like he's still doing it, but
Yeah,
just about holding on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah. That idea that you don't, you haven't moved on with your mates. There's always someone left behind
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
still in their 20s, but not, are they? It's like,
No.
but they
yeah,
feel they're keeping it real because they're still doing that thing. Yeah.
yeah. Or you just haven't grown up. Like we all know people that like have struggled with growing up, like and being part of society and doing what society expects, or like just because you haven't quite like found the thing that you love, or life doesn't love you somehow. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like so you just like treading water,
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
it. I
And that's
think that's
very much Mark's character in this. Yeah.
yeah. And really, this story is like he's not very likable. Neither is the poacher in many ways. It depends on what your taste, isn't it, of people. It's not
Yeah.
we haven't got hero characters,
No,
but
not at all. Even though
I,
we're
but
rooting for him because we want him to escape because he's
yeah,
trapped.
but
Yeah.
yeah, that was quite interesting though because I know actually the challenge to us. I think when we first showed it to our friends, like a cut of it in December before Christmas last year. One of my feedback was from Esther, and she was like, I need a bit more empathy for Mark's character. And, we didn't really change much, but there was a couple of shots that we just moved around. And I think ultimately, I've now getting the feedback from people who are not part of the process, who are actually do have some empathy for Mark and they want him to escape.
Mm.
And actually, so I feel like the balance is kind of in a good place because also there's a lot of empathy for Jason and him losing his dog and being part of the earth and the civilization and the kind of materialistic world that
Mm.
we all know that has occurred since 93 onwards from when we were kind of younger. Like it's the difference in the last 20 years to that life that we used to have is immense, so yeah, I think that was quite an achievement for us, in many ways, is
Yeah.
Yeah.
finding that balance without having and in the ending, like holding with Mark at the end. And, I've had people ask me about what's he thinking about? What's he looking about? What's he looking? And, ultimately holding that shot with Mark tells you that he's reliving, he's actually coming to terms that he's actually achieved something. He's escaped, he's had an experience, Um,
I want to ask about the music. I mean, I won't say what scene it's from. It's my favorite scene, but there's this demented version of the Flower Duet, which is fabulous, and also the music the whole way through. Really, really love it. Although, again, in fitting with what we were talking about earlier, the first part, apart from the bits that we see at the rave kind of thing, there isn't very much music there.
Yeah, it was a choice. It was a choice basically really early on for me, that I just stood with all the way through, that there wasn't gonna be a score,
Mhm.
yeah.
in the traditional sense. I thought it would ruin it. I tried a couple of things and it ruined it.
We talked about
Um,
it constantly, didn't we? Every Monday night at football, it's like, yeah, no score, no score,
yeah,
no temp music, no
yeah,
nothing. Like just
no, no, I because of the financial aspect of the film, and like you add music, even if it's tones, and it basically, like, I just think that it can very very easy make something look a lot cheaper than it actually is. I mean, a lot of people make that mistake of overscoring low budget films, in my experience anyway. And then it just cheapens the film even more. Um, you know, so even though I'm, a film composer by trade now, I suppose, then I just, wanted the music to be real, and so the rave stuff. We There's a guy called Jamie, who we play football with. Basically, we found out he was like a kind of dance music kind of producer guy. So I asked him to write some tunes because he's the same age as us. I said, "Can you write some tunes from the like raves in the '90s?" I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to do that." So
yeah,
so he did. He wrote a load of tunes, and then we edited them. And I worked on the sound design a lot of them, trying to make sure that they sounded real in the rave. You know what I mean? It wasn't like because I was really scared about this whole thing about casualty. like that it was just going to look like an episode of Casualty, you know. And so when they go to a rave, it's like the music's quite soft and you can hear everyone talk, and like this whole thing where, you know, when the girl speaks outside the rave, you can't really hear what she's saying.
Yeah.
And that's purposely because you can, you know, it's like we wanted to not break that wall of kind of, you know, films, you know what I mean? We wanted to make it as realistic as we could. Anyway, so basically the end scene that you're talking about as well,
It's
the
Boléro, isn't it? What did you
it's
call it, Marbell? You called it
Oh, I
the
thought it was the flower duet. No, is it not that? No.
Rebel's Boléro,
Oh,
yeah.
right.
it's a Rebels Bolero.
Mhm.
And
It might,
basically,
yeah.
what it is for me is that without giving too much away, um, Torval and Dean were ice skating pair that won in the, I think it was the 1982 Olympics as ice skate.
84 or something, wasn't it?
84, yeah. And it really reminds me of a certain time that would have been in Jason's life,
Yeah.
and his past. So really it's about it's what he's, I suppose, is what he's hearing. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
um
It's from
and
the depths of his experience, isn't it? It's like
mixed with like it's like a rave version. It's like a terrible rave version of it. Um, um, and we knew that we had this specific scene that we needed to score. And but we needed a piece of music that would you know, it's quite long and it's the scene is quite slow. So we needed a piece of music that would propel itself. Do you know what I mean? That would grow and chord changes, and it just worked. It
Yeah.
was just like, well, thank God we found this because it really works, you know. Um, and yeah, so we're really pleased with how that turned out, really.
it was interesting though, like from my point of view with the sound design and the music, like I didn't want Geoff to be in a position where we had temp music and we was taking it out and that was putting a plaster over things. So like we used this whole experience to kind of support each other's journey as well. Like so,
Mm,
you know, it was challenging. You know, I've learned a lot about like not using temp because a part of putting temp music in and putting music on any kind of narrative is it kind of fixes shit as well.
oh,
Right.
Like
hugely,
like
yeah.
it's like you just settle back and go, oh, that sequence works now. I've got a tone running through it, and it's like, oh, it's tense. It's telling me to feel this. But when you've got nothing, and you just have to build tension through images, and that kind of flips around my career because I've always cut images to music in general, or I've made music, made visuals to a live show, or the sound has always been there first. And even when I started making moving image, I always created soundtracks first and then cut images to them. Whereas the film is the flip of that. It's like the
Mm,
images are what comes first. And actually, when we started perfecting the sound design with our with George and then Martin later on in the final mix, it was actually we were taking sound away and letting the visual be the trigger and
mm,
the guiding principles. And that's what happened with the music as well. Like the music, the film demanded the music to be in certain sequences, didn't it?
yeah.
Apart from having rave music at the rave and then the trip sequence having its moment, all the other pieces are like, the story demands it. And then so we brought it in. So it was never
Mm.
like, you know, um, it wasn't planned. It was like we gave it space and then it asked for it. And then we delivered what it needed.
Yeah, in the film, there's not any kind of tension tones
Yeah.
or booms or on cuts or
Mm.
which I find that a lot of people use a low budget to enhance almost the professionalism of the film, and I think it's awful. I think it's a really it's I think that people that know film at a certain level will watch that and just go, that's just it's stock. It's stock stuff. And you and it's very much used in television. I'm not putting down television. It's like, you know, because there's great television, but there also is a load of awful television. And if you look, if you if you close your eyes and listen to the sound design and score of terrible television, that's the thing you want to be farthest away from if you're trying to, make a low budget indie drama. But I think that's my personal opinion anyway.
Yeah.
Unless it's a sci-fi, you know what I mean, or like, do you know what I mean? Because then you got Star Wars, then you got the spaceship noises and all that kind of stuff that goes with it.
Sliding door needs to be loud, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly, and I think you have to strip everything back to start, like stuff really see what you've got, and whether to see that you feel tension without this kind of sub bass kind of thing rolling under telling you to feel tension.
Yeah.
Um,
But
I think
Geoff, I always see a correlation between, it reminds me of Portishead live shows as well, like the quiet and then the loud. It's kind of almost like if you looked at the waveform, it kind of has that
yeah,
dynamic shift as well in the film. And like we found that out in the final mix with Martin. He was like, this is the quietest film I've ever mixed. And then
yeah,
it's really loud, and then and I think that it's an experience in that sense. It's like if something's quiet, you have to listen and your ears you tune into it. It's like you're
mm,
leaning in,
Sure, yeah.
and then you're hit with something hard, and like a rave, and then it has a greater impact on you. Like
massively,
going to a
yeah,
rave tent, it's like it physically affects you. You kind of
yeah,
are a bit mental because you're being bombarded with physical feeling, from the sound waves.
yeah,
Mm. So, game premiered at the Mayhem Film Festival last month, didn't it?
yeah.
And you're kind of on a tour now. So I know you're playing in Brighton, where I live, tomorrow, and then you've got Leeds on the 13th, and then the actual release is the 21st. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a week of Q&As leading up to the 21st, starting in Bristol, then Manchester, and a couple of shows in London, in
Mm.
Hackney and Soho, and then the release on the 21st, and then with Nottingham, Newcastle, up into Scotland, and then back down to Cardiff.
Yeah,
There's a few more in December in Belfast and
yeah.
Birmingham.
Cool.
I mean, it's been interesting because we're running this pretty much like the same as Invada Records, and it's true. It's fully, truly independent. You know what I mean? We
Mm.
haven't got a distributor. We haven't got a marketing budget. Like we could, I could have tried to gone. We're holding off going to streamers and like pay per view yet, because we want to create a vibe about it, like you would do a record, like you would do a band. You know what I mean? With my experience, and see people, digging it, so that we can make some noise that someone might come along and go, oh, here's a little bit of money, and we'll buy that for Europe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, you know, we've decided to go that route, which means that we're working with a brilliant guy called Colin, who works with Verve for many years. You know what I mean? He's independently putting us into cinemas and asking, and we're just trying. The only way that we can promote it really is word of mouth and Instagram. You know what I mean? Everything else is gone pretty much. We've got a press person that we're paid, so in that sense, that is our marketing budget. Um, we know how hard it is to sell stuff, because we know it through music, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the moment, like film is really tough, especially for British independent stuff, because you're going against, A24 $50 million films that are still considered as indies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is preposterous, but it's true, you know what I mean? So, if you want to get into an everyman or whatever, then you've got to fight, one, like Eddington or something. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Which is like,
one
what?
battle, yeah.
How can I do this? And obviously, independent cinemas are really supportive, and they want to get people in there. And so because they need the audience, so they have to book those films, and everyone wants to watch those films anyway because they're craft, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting period for us, you know what I mean, to kind of see what happens, see if we'll ever make the money back. ultimately. But you know, yeah, I feel for it for all independent film people out there.
Yeah, no, well, we hear that a lot because we deal with a lot of short filmmakers and then debut feature filmmakers, and we know like what those struggles look like and the difficulty, and also the difficulty then going from that first debut feature and being able to move on to the second.
Mm,
Like lots of people drop off there, so
mm,
something that we see firsthand.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like it's a I mean it's an analogy that if you were a band that releases a record and then but you make this really cool record and it's kind of pretty lo-fi or whatever it is, but it does its job and you get radio and it's at festivals and all that kind of stuff. And then by the time the second one comes around and you get a slightly bigger budget, like you get producers going, well, we're not too sure about your guitar player now, and your guitar player is your DOP, right?
Yeah.
So this is a guy that you work with, a person who you work with, or whatever, and you just go, no, this is what makes this film.
mm.
I was talking to a director the other day, and they've removed his DOP. You know what I mean? Just like it's like, well, you're giving me the money based on this thing that I made. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Like, what you do is like removing the drummer or the guitarist,
yeah.
of a band, and then yeah, it's a strange business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the process of making our film, like along the way, we was quite conscious of imagine if we had another voice, an investor or an exec who had like a studio kind of thing, another voice basically in the editing process. We would never have been given the time to develop it. I think that we would have been forced to change the story or change the ending or do this or do that. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think I can totally envisage if I was onto a next feature that wasn't Invader Films, then that would be something that I'd be exposed to. And
Yeah, but I'm the
you know,
producer now, so it'll be me.
yeah, basically, you'll be demanding, get rid of
I'll be the
Ross,
demanding one
bump on
telling you to
Sam.
change the end.
Thanks, guys.
um,
But it was only us. That was us on this film. It was like me and you and Mark and Rob, and
Yeah.
that was it. Trying to figure it out. But if we had somebody else going, no, I've got a formula. I've got evidence from the public. Well,
I must admit as well that we've been very lucky is that we work with Andy Stark as like as a producer, kind of like in the heavens, like looking down on us. You know what I mean? Like in those things, so we can find out how he's a experienced producer, does Ben Wheatley and Rook films and
yeah.
and everything else, and then also we've kind of sent it to kind of like to Alex and to Ben Wheatley and to Cillian and to like and the response has been really good and we've been really lucky with that, that we've kind of got these connections outside because look, most people don't. Do you know what I mean? So we were very aware of people watching this going, well, yeah, but that's all right for you because you got this, and we do feel like properly that we are lucky that we can have that feedback from people that are incredibly experienced. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah, but that gave us a foundation to begin with because we've all been working and like we all know what we're doing in our lives and our career, not
Mm.
necessarily our lives, but our careers for sure. So those contacts are genuinely earned. They're not just
Yeah.
by chance.
No.
Those guys, yeah, I don't know at all. I've met Alex, once, but from what I can tell from the outside and your relationships with them, is that they want this to be a success. So when you're showing it to them, they're also checking in. They don't want it to be shit, and we're checking in with them, going, "Is this okay?" Like basically, like it's like you're hoping that they will say if it is not, if it needs
Yeah.
this or that, and
Oh
actually.
no, no, yeah, but and all of those people do as well. You know what I mean? They don't mince their words. Those people. You know what I
No,
mean?
Yeah, that's what you
Alex is, he's a critic, isn't he? Basically. Mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's going to be next for both of you in Invada Records? I've read a great quote from you, Geoff, that said, this is, we've told everything that we want to tell as middle-aged white blokes. So the next two, we're going to branch out for that. So yeah, is there, any hints you can drop about what's going to come next or future
Well,
projects?
well, basically, you know, a lot hinges on what happens with game. Not like that's going to make or break it, but yeah, I mean, you know, we're all working on stuff outside of Invader. John, you know, is working on films and tours and everything else, and you know, obviously Mark and Rob writes Judge Dredd. You know what I mean? And many films that he's got. I think he's just got a deal with some development, which is really good. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? As a writer, it's just been picked up. But yeah, I mean, I suppose you know I've written stuff that I mean I've been trying to get a film that's kind of in the 3 million quid mark off the ground before game happened. So I'm still working on that, which is a very different thing. It's something that's actually based in Africa, and you know I'm in the middle of writing a stoner whodunit based in LA, and hopefully I'm gonna pair up with a record company that I know over there as well. That would be good fun with lots of their artists. So yeah, I mean, and then really it's maybe wait until the right idea comes along for as this group of people again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, and you know, go from there really, you know.
Yeah, I feel like personally I've kind of reached a kind of like plateau, like I've climbed this mountain of making this feature. There's nothing absolutely in my diary. You know, normally there'd be a tour in the spring and I'd be pulling my hair out about all the stuff. Like a lot of projects in my life overlap. Like I'm normally doing 8 things over the course of 1 year, and some of them they could all last 3 months each. And I've kind of got to that point where I'm actually clear. And so now I'm kind of like, we're still going through this process of delivering the film, and that was the idea
Mm.
from the beginning. It was like we're doing the whole process. It's not like I've directed this thing, I've edited it, and now I'm off. You guys promote it. We are still figuring out promotion. We're still like feeding Instagram and figuring it out, and now promoting it and talking to you guys. So and that ain't gonna stop, is it? Like, so into
No.
here, I'm kind of like at the first time in many, many years, it's like, what is next? So I'm open. Like, I'm kind of waiting for something, and I'm obviously pushing. I've got a couple of mates talking to me about documentaries, and there's a producer guy that wants me to be involved in something else, and Esther's got a film in development that we're hoping to work on, and you know, there's always things that happen in one phone call, and you're busy, you know, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, who
God.
knows? It's like it's quite nice not knowing and deciding what do I want, you know, and that's what
Yeah.
I'm interested in this process for as well is like challenging myself about, you know, moving, developing and trying different areas in your within your realm, you know.
Fantastic.
Mm.
And yeah, where should I point our audience to, stay up to date with both of your various projects?
Well, just Instagram, I imagine. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, just
Vader Films on Insta.
Invader Films, you know, Invader Records, you know, Barrow Jeff, I think it is, and then Minton Films.
Yeah,
You know,
Minton Film on Insta and mintonfilm.co.uk is a website that needs revamping.
we've all got one of those.
Yeah, yeah, we do too.
Must get round to that. Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you both for, spending so much time with me today. I absolutely loved the film. I think we did a good job of talking around it and not spoiling anything, which I'm
Yeah,
very
thank you. I appreciate
pleased
that.
with.
Yeah,
So, yeah, good luck with the tour, and yeah, I can't wait to see, what you both get up to next.
Thank
yeah.
you. Nice to meet
Well,
you.
thanks for having us.